Tonight, Donald Trump is looking at hundreds of billions of dollars in legal judgments. On Friday, a judge ordered him to pay $355 million in the New York civil fraud trial, but factor in interest, and that total could be closer to $450 million. Joining us more to talk about this, CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig and Jeffrey Rosen, president and CEO of the National Constitution Center. He's also the author of The Pursuit of Happiness, How Classical Writers on Virtue Inspired the Lives of the Founders and Defined America. Very important book. Elie, let me start with you first. Does Trump even have the cash to pay for all of this? I suppose we show this to our viewers on screen right now. Earlier today, they announced they're selling some Trump sneakers. I don't know if we have that image handy, but that was announced earlier this afternoon. I guess this goes in the long line of Trump products that have been sold over the years. Does he have the money for this, Elie?
Well, first of all, Jim, now I have to see the image of the Trump sneakers. I'm very curious. Does he have the money?
Now, yeah.
I'm not the person. There we go. I said, wow, okay. Here's how it's going to work with respect to payment. So first of all, Donald Trump will have a chance to appeal. He has a right to one level appeal, arguably to two levels of appeal. When that's all done, we will have a final number that Donald Trump will owe, and it's not optional at that point. You can't negotiate out of that. Once we're done the appeals, whatever the number is has to be paid. Now, while the appeal's pending, he'll have to post a bond. There can be a cash component of that. It wouldn't be the whole $360 million. And there could be some posting of a property, the deed to a property. That can be worked out between the parties or set by the judge. But ultimately, when this number comes down, you have to pay it either in cash or by liquidating assets, meaning by selling assets. So important to understand this ultimately will be the result of the courts and not something that's subject to negotiation.
Yeah, Jeffrey, let's dive into that a little bit because, not only is there's supposed to be this concept in this country that nobody is above the law. I guess nobody is above also paying these legal fines in Donald Trump's case. But there's also the question of immunity. We were just talking with Ann Applebaum in the previous segment about Putin's Russia. Trump is also, on top of everything else, attempting to seek from the Supreme Court absolute immunity for presidents of the United States in this country. You work for the National Constitution Center. That would be contrary to our constitutional form of government in this country, would it not?
It's the antithesis of our form of government. The president is not a king or a czar or Putin in America. And the Putin example is really powerful. In America, the president can't kill his enemies and call up judges and remain immune. It was really important that the D.C. Circuit unanimously rejected the immunity claim. The Supreme Court is likely to reject it as well, either by not hearing the case or hearing it quickly. But it's a central point, and it's so important as all of these cases are coming together that Donald Trump is trying either to delay the trials or to claim that he's immune from them. And he's not succeeding in case after case. And what's important for viewers is this is the way the American system is supposed to work. And attacking the legitimacy of the system and attacking judges is not the American way.
Yeah, Elie, it's been described as sort of a political stroke of genius for Donald Trump to go to all these hearings and cause a big kerfuffle out in the hallway outside the courtroom and so on. But is accountability starting to happen for Donald Trump with the E. Jean Carroll case and now this civil fraud trial damage amount, the fine that was imposed by the judge there? There are lots of other cases that are coming up, lots of other hearings that are very consequential to, I guess, answering that question in the coming weeks.
Yeah, well, on the civil side, Jim, there's no question about it. We see the verdicts. We now, between the two E. Jean Carroll verdicts and the verdict yesterday, I think if you tally it all up with interest, it comes out to over $500 million. And like I said, that's money that ultimately has to be paid. So there's definitely been accountability on the civil side. To me, of course, and you alluded to this, the much bigger question is, will we see accountability on the criminal side? And to that end, yes, things have been delayed, not extraordinarily, by the way. We're not at all beyond the normal time frame for when a case will go to trial. If anything, we're on the short side of that. That said, we do now have a trial date. Donald Trump will be going to trial by all appearances, barring some really unexpected last-minute development, on March 25th in New York City. That is happening. That is the hush money falsification case. And when it comes to that case, I think, does Donald Trump have a risk of being convicted? Sure. The healthy majority of criminal defendants who go to trial do get convicted. I don't think there's any secret he's going to have an unfriendly jury in Manhattan. But it is important to know That is the least serious of the 4 criminal cases. I don't think there's any argument against that. And even if he's convicted on the highest variation of the charges he faces in that case, under New York state law, that's unlikely to result in a prison sentence. So the bigger stakes are the ones coming up, the federal cases and potentially the Georgia case.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, you and I were talking about this during the break. You don't think it's that unusual, some of the delay tactics and some of the delays that we've seen so far? I mean, every defendant has that right to try to adjudicate all of these various things through the hearing process. What's your sense of where things stand right now? Do you think we'll see the Jack Smith January 6th case go to trial this year before the election? Do we think we'll see that?
Well, you're absolutely right, and Ellie's right, that this is not unusual delay, and defendants are supposed to use every legal avenue. And in fact, challenging prosecutions can be productive, as we saw in the Hunter Biden case, where the key informant was just disqualified for lying. So challenging is what defendants are supposed to do. The Jack Smith timing depends on, first, what the Supreme Court does. Is it going to rehear immunity or just uphold the D.C. Circuit? But then next month, there's a centrally important case in the Supreme Court where the court's going to decide whether the core of Jack Smith's charges involving obstruction of justice are consistent with the Constitution and the law or not. If they throw those out, that's going to be a stake in the heart of the Jack Smith case. It won't prevent it, but it'll make it much harder to pursue.
All right. Jeffrey Rosen, Ellie Honig. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great to see both of you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. We'll be right back.